What's up, everybody? Well, yesterday we got the premiere, first 2 episodes actually, of Better Call Saul Season 6, the final season of Better Call Saul. If you're just now finding me, I'm a Breaking Bad fanatic. I've reviewed that series, I've done a ranking of the seasons, I've talked about it at length, and I'm also a big fan of Better Call Saul, and I just dropped my review of Season 1 yesterday. I'm going to be dropping my reviews of the first 5 seasons over the next month or so as the final season plays, and I'm also going to be doing episode-by-episode reviews / recap discussions until the end of this final season. So if you're a fan of Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul, please hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of my future content. Now, as far as these first 2 episodes, as I typically do when I talk about episode-by-episode explorations of seasons, I'm going to be going through some of the events of the show, definitely getting into spoilers, giving my thoughts, both positive and negative, throughout the episodes, and we'll just kind of ride this wave together until we get to the end. So the first 2 episodes premiered back-to-back. I watched them on AMC Plus, which lets you watch them on Monday nights. If you're sticking around to watch it on Netflix, that'll be debuting tonight after this video debuts. And we had the episode Wine and Roses, and then the second episode titled Carrot and Stick. And the significant plots going on right now are pretty much the ones that have been the tail end of Season 5 that are leading off of that, where you have Lalo that was supposed to be killed by this ambush of Gus's mercenaries, and he's obviously alive. You've got Nacho that is now found out to be a traitor, and he is on the run. You've got Jimmy and Kim that are teaming up to take down Howard Hamlin, his reputation in some way, to get the Sandpiper case to close earlier so that Saul can get his gigantic settlement that is coming to him, his percentage of the case that he brought to that firm. And then you also have Mike and Gus that are kind of not really struggling for power, but Mike is challenging Gus a certain degree with how he's going to deal with this Lalo and Nacho situation. Before we get into all of that, though, I do want to talk about the flash forward sequence, which was the most unique flash forward sequence that we have ever gotten in this show. Typically, it's black and white, it's focused on Saul as a character, it's showing him as he's working at Cinnabon, and the last 2 seasons, especially 4 and 5, have been very tension-filled, to where he's got this paranoia that somebody is going to find him out, or somebody knows that he's Saul. And last year in Season 5, or I guess 2 years ago in Season 5, they actually had somebody find out that he was Saul and come and confront him. And he was about to call Robert Forster and do that whole identity swap thing again, and decided to hang up the phone and go handle it himself. So that's where we left off as far as the post-Breaking Bad story of Saul Goodman. And I was really looking forward to seeing the next step of that, but it looks like we're going to have to wait until part 2 of the final season, because this season opens up with a full color sequence to where all these people are taking out this gigantic Scarface level house, just cleaning out all the possessions, and then eventually it's revealed that that's actually Saul's house, because there's a box that's got like a Mesa Verde poster and a couple other things that are signature for Saul, and then of course that little top for the tequila bottle that's been around since like Season 1, Season 2 drops out of his Coco Bolo desk at the very end of it, and that was our flash forward. And it was a very interesting choice, because on one end, I don't think that it might be the least interesting of the flash forwards so far, because we're not seeing any character development or any actual story development for where things have gone since Breaking Bad. This just shows his house being cleaned out after presumably the Walter White stuff just went tits up in the final season. And the only real information that we're given in this flash forward, it's still interesting, is how wealthy Saul actually was. This guy was always wearing these fucking podunk suits, and he had this shitty car, and he's in this little corner mall. This did not look like a lawyer that is just pulling in the riches. It seemed like his deal with Walter White was finally like his time to actually start getting some real money. And so that's the one revelation that I got out of this flash forward, was that this guy was already wealthy as fuck from God knows how many other things. Presumably a lot of that was probably bankrolled by eventually when he does get his Sandpiper money, but he did not need to get into bed with Walter White. This guy was living fine just the way he was. Now, as far as after that flash forward, when it gets back to, current times, as far as Better Call Saul timeline goes, him and Kim are now going full force against Howard Hamlin, which was something that was kind of insinuated by the end of Season 5, that Kim was going to start going down this really dark path and stop at nothing to take out this guy who's been kind of an insufferable pain in the ass for most of this series, although he's not completely guilty. So this is something where now they are teaming up and they break into this country club so that Saul can put fake cocaine onto Howard Hamlin's locker so that Saul's old boss, Ed Begley, would see this cocaine on Howard and start to get the ball rolling, these rumors or this reputation that would start to taint his reputation as a lawyer so that they can eventually squeeze this Sandpiper case into closing faster than it normally would. And so that was an interesting sequence. I always like seeing the scam artist side of Saul Goodman, especially whenever he's working with Kim, because they're essentially like a power couple at this point, just taking it on both sides. So I enjoyed that. I am curious how far it's going to go. That is the dark, sinister side of the hint that I got at the end of last season, was that eventually we're going to come to a point where even Saul is like flinching at how far they're about to go, and Kim is just going to stop at nothing, which I would assume is what's going to be her downfall. She's not ever mentioned in Breaking Bad, so she's either in prison or dead or something else. There's some dark fate that's going to happen to her, or especially to their relationship by the end of this, and I think that the Howard Hamlin stuff is probably going to be the main catalyst for that. And then in episode 2, which I thought was even more entertaining, was that they get this this couple that from the first season, the family that was doing the embezzling that Saul screwed over, they get them back into the fold. They're running like this tax filing business out in the middle of nowhere, and they got the little Statue of Liberty balloon that eventually Saul's going to take and use in his little corner mall setup. And he uses them and manipulates them into furthering this cocaine reputation of Howard Hamlin. And then eventually this episode ends on a really tense scene, especially with Kim Wexler just going like full dark side, to where this couple is starting to give shit back, and she calls and threatens to basically out them that they're doing this IRS tax filing wrong, which how they found that out, I don't know, but it was a cool little revelation that even after they get busted for embezzling, these fucking people are still trying to make money the shady way, and just totally muscles them, just bitches them into the corner, and it crumbles them down. And you can also see in Bob Odenkirk's face, like, he's almost regretful of the path that he has put Kim on, to where she's just so ruthless with this couple and so good at it that he's just like, fuck, what monster did I create? That's not her. That's not Kim. I mean, you got somebody that wants to dedicate their life to pro bono cases to help people, that is on the other side of the coin just manipulating every single person that she can to get what she wants. Those two don't go side by side. So I really like how they're starting to build that difficulty between Saul and Kim, to where Kim is on the path that Saul has put her on, but Bob Odenkirk and his performance is showing very well that he's not really sitting well the fact that he has set her on this path. Now, as far as the Lalo and the Nacho storyline, I thought that this was also starting off pretty good this season, although there are a couple things that confused me about it. Maybe you guys can clarify down below in the comment section. So Lalo has escaped. He's obviously survived this ambush, and they start him off in this sequence where he goes and he meets with these two people that are living on his compound, and he's very friendly with them, and then he just murders them with a pair of scissors and gets the guy to cut his facial hair to look like him. And as soon as that happened, I was like, oh, he's going to stage a body. And that's exactly what he does, is to stage a body so that they can feel like definitively Lalo Salamanca is dead. I am confused at how he got the dental records to match, because they even go as far as to say that on the report, that the dental records match whenever Tyrus is talking to Gus. So that was a little bit of a question that I had, but nonetheless, very cool. Once again, reinforcing how dark and ruthless this character is, and while just being so charismatic. Like, he's one of the best villains that we've gotten in either of these shows, honestly. Lalo is just awesome. So you have Nacho, who's a character that has kind of fought for screen time throughout this entire series, and I'll get more into my thoughts on that as I get into my reviews of season 2 and onward, but he's a character I've always been intrigued on, but he always feels like he gets pushed to the background more times than he should. And he's really in the forefront this season so far, to where he's hiding out in this hotel under the direction of Tyrus and Gus, and he's supposed to wait there until eventually he's going to be released safely so they can get him back across the border. And over the 2 episodes, he eventually gets so paranoid that he tries to figure out whether or not he's being watched, discovers that he is being watched, and that Gus has actually betrayed him and sold him out to the cartel. So right when he finds out that he's actually being watched so that he can be kept in this hotel room, he figures it out, and then the cousins and the cartel come to just lay waste, which is like one of the cooler and more intense shootouts that we've gotten in this series especially, but even amongst some with Breaking Bad, where he busts out while shooting his way out through the cousins because they want to keep him alive. So I really liked the tension and the action that his character is bringing to this season so far. Now, as far as the other side of things with Mike and with Gus, which tends to be a bit of a power struggle right now, to where Mike feels indebted to Nacho to a certain degree, especially to his father. He doesn't like the fact that Gus is holding a gun to Nacho's father. He doesn't like the fact that he is manipulating this guy and they're doing all of his bidding. He's doing everything and he's still not throwing him a bone. And so I like that we finally are getting this point to where Mike's morals and Gus's early morals are starting to come to a bit of a head. And what I like even more about that is that the Gus that we're seeing right now is not the Gus that we're used to seeing in Breaking Bad. Because the Gus in Breaking Bad, despite certainly being morally ambiguous and certainly having some evil to him, he's a very respectable guy the way that he goes about it. Like, he understands the value and people's loyalty, and he's not necessarily out to be this vicious warlord that's just murdering people or setting people out to be murdered left and right. Even to the point where in season 4, Jesse Pinkman, who is the epitome of a thorn in his side, he realizes the benefit in swapping him over to his allegiance. So this is the catalyst for what eventually creates the Gus that we know in Breaking Bad. He's still kind of wild. He's still kind of morally ambiguous to where he's more conflicted with his decisions. He's not as calm and calculated and just 1,000 steps ahead of everybody as we're used to seeing. Even like kind of personified whenever he takes the pitcher and knocks the glass over. And it's one of the few moments that you see this calm, calculated guy like screw up, even for something as innocuous as knocking over a glass. So I really like the early buds of that storyline, to where it feels like Mike is going to actually make Gus grow as a character. And that's going to be really interesting to see. The one thing about these 2 episodes that I still really struggle with understanding the logic. And of course, this is a type of show where sometimes answers come later on. So maybe this question will be answered in episode 3 or onward. But you obviously have Mike that does not want Nacho to die, that does not want Nacho to fall into the hands of the cartel, that does not want him to be anything but brought back into their little fold and brought back to safety on their side of the border. And of course you have Gus that, at least at this point, is very much the opposite of that. He really doesn't care what happens to this guy. He's got what he's needed. And while he's believing that Lalo is actually dead. But there's a point in this episode where they break into Nacho's little apartment and they cut into his safe. They remove all the money, they remove his fake IDs, they get an identical safe to come in, they put the money back, they put the IDs back, and then Mike plants a letter inside of there. So that when the Salamanca cartel comes in and breaks in and cuts into this safe, they find this letter which has this bank account information, and it also has the phone number to the hotel so that they can know exactly where to find him, which is where he's hiding out. And I really don't understand why Mike did that. I can understand if Gus ordered that, but I don't understand why Mike would follow through with doing that, literally giving them a bread trail right to where Nacho is if he's trying to preserve the life of Nacho. So maybe somebody can clarify that down below. That didn't make any sense to me. Beyond that, I did like the fact that we got this scene between Gus and Tio, Hector Salamanca, to where he's putting on this facade, you know, apologizing for his loss, and an attack against one of us is an attack against all of us. And Hector kind of forces himself to hold his hand out, and through his body language and his facial expression, of which he has very little range, Gus is able to deduce that Lalo is in fact alive. So all those little elements that we got in these first 2 episodes I really enjoyed. It was a really good kickoff to this season so far. I certainly enjoyed the tension of the second episode more than I did the first. The first one was very kind of slow starting, to where we got a lot more of the intense side of the storyline with Nacho as well as Jimmy and Kim in the second episode. But I do want the answer to that whole thing with Mike. That's the only thing that I'm a little bit confused on, and I'm not typically confused with a Breaking Bad or a Better Call Saul script. They're usually very meticulously written to where everything comes together. And that's the one thing that I'm like having a big logic gap with. So somebody let me know down below if you have an answer for that, or you think it's something we're going to be explained later on in this season. But what do you guys think of the first 2 episodes of Better Call Saul? Is this off to a great start for you? Do you think that this season could land Better Call Saul as being a better show overall than Breaking Bad? Where does that land as far as which show you like better? Let me know down below, guys, and we will talk about it. Please like and share this video. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of my Better Call Saul coverage coming in the future. Thank you guys so much for watching as always, and remember, opinions are like assholes, but that doesn't mean that you have to be.